I have one job and one job only. And I would like to share a few words about choosing responsibility over victimhood in real life, not just in theory, talking about it, thinking about it, but to discover how applicable it is in real life challenges and pretty much in all of them. And I don't want to focus just on the basic ideas and just basic examples, which are very clear. But I want to also dive a little bit deeper into more subtle things and discover that the principles stay the same and advanced basics are still basics. But generally speaking, it's based on my journey with my own life challenges, such as gambling, such as eating disorders, such as relationship, suffering in general, but also finding peace in general. But at the same time, the ideas about choosing responsibility over victimhood are very universal. They are very basic and they are so obvious and so simple that very often we just ignore them. And I think that practicing this theory and finding this core idea in real life situations is what make us better human beings, basically more responsible human beings, because I think the journey in the area of this main human dilemma from my perspective, are you a victim or are you a responsible human being, is basically something that doesn't end at any point in life. It's a constant battle, constant everyday battle to choose responsibility over victimhood. And I would like to maybe look at 2 or 3 basic examples, but I want to go a little bit further and look at more advanced or more subtle examples as well, just to discover that the core principles are always the same. And we just have to look for this obvious, simple stuff, and that will become much easier. So I want to look at 3 examples, very basic ones, very obvious, just like as a warm-up. So let's take an example of workplace conflict, and let's take an example of the problem where an employee feels overlooked for a promotion. They blame their boss for favoritism and start disengaging from work. And so the victimhood mindset would be, it's not fair, my boss doesn't like me, so there is nothing I can do. And the responsibility mindset would be, this situation hurts, but what can I control? I can ask for feedback, improve my skills, and demonstrate my value. And so the outcome is, by taking responsibility, the employee gains insight into what's missing, builds credibility, and positions themselves for future opportunities, instead of staying stuck in resentments. Simple, easy, right? We understand that it's sometimes difficult, but we know the direction. We know what to do, Obviously, as always, there are many nuances, and we could look at any individual example for further analysis, but generally speaking, it is like this. Let's find another example in fitness. Let's say the problem is that someone realizes they've gained weight and feel unhealthy after months of poor eating and inactivity. And so victimhood mindset would be, my schedule is too busy, healthy food is expensive, and I just have bad genes, there's nothing I could do. And it's clear that this person feels like a victim of their environment, of their conditioning, and doesn't take responsibility. And the responsibility mindset would be, well, I understand my habits created this result, and new habits can change it. I can start with small steps like daily walks and meal prep. And it's not rejecting the idea that maybe I have bad genetics, and maybe it's more difficult for me than for others, or that, maybe there is no gym in my village, or I cannot afford the gym membership. But there is so much that could be done without membership or without whatever else, like that's one of the biggest lies. I don't think anybody believes that anymore, that it is expensive, that it costs money to be in good shape. It's of course not true. But yeah, a very simple example, just as a warm up. And let's get another one. Relationship breakdown. So a problem. A couple keeps arguing and one partner feels constantly misunderstood. A victimhood mindset would be, they never listen. It's all their fault. I'm the one being wronged. And the responsibility mindset would be, I can't control them, but I can control how I communicate. Am I listening? Am I reacting defensively? How can I model the respect I want to receive? And so the outcome would be, responsibility opens space for empathy, clear communication, and healing, even if the other person doesn't change right away. And of course, there's an elephant in the room, that it is not our duty to stay in any relationship. I said that in one of the previous videos, that it's all optional. We don't have to do this. I don't have to record this video. You don't have to watch it. I don't have to continue living, but I can. And the same applies to any relationship. Everything in life is optional. That's a massive, life-changing realization I had, But yeah, so that's basic examples of that idea that taking responsibility solves problems, that we find purpose in and agency, that in any particular situation when I feel some sort of stress and disappointment of my environment, realizing that I cannot stop the rain, for example, but I can, take an umbrella, or I can stay home, or I can get wet, and that's fine, Oh, I'm wet, I understand. And there is a lot of peace coming from just the concept, just the act of accepting the reality as it is, just, oh, I'm not struggling with this, I accept the consequences of my choosing of even the basic idea of, like I said, that continuing my life is an optional act, And right now, I chose to live. And everything that happens to me afterwards is the consequence of that decision, And so I chose all possible consequences, and just realizing that and accepting that brings me personally a lot of peace. That, I am not angry at external environment, external circumstances, It doesn't matter if those are, dogs who are barking, or people who are, trying to be mean to me, or trying to take advantage of me, or it's rain which makes me wet, or the prices that go up and I wanted to buy something for a cheap price, like flight tickets or whatever, It's just, I chose to live, and those are the consequences I have responsibility to accept. And responsibility could be also pronounced as responsibility, that I am able to make a conscious and mindful response. I don't have to stay on autopilot and just, neurotically do what I am conditioned to do. I can take some time and, observe myself and come up with a response that is more and more close to my deep values, And the practice basically helps to do that in the long term. And for me personally, and this is the reason, this is my main motivation why I want to share with the world, is that, I've practiced a lot. This was my priority. This has been my priority for quite a few years now. And I can see so many positive effects. And it's not just, some efficiency type of thing. It's a deep peace and gratitude that I observe, that I experience on a daily basis. And I feel like, I don't want to invade you with these realizations, but I want to share with anybody who wants to take it, because it's not like sharing takes it away from me. Quite the opposite, So this is my main motivation. And like I said, I would like to touch at maybe one or two examples which seem a little bit more subtle, and we could jump into a conclusion that it's something else, that it doesn't concern responsibility or victimhood, but it's, as a matter of fact, it is exactly the same. Like I said, that advanced basics are still basics, So one example, we could even stay in the realm of relationships, like in the previous examples, and fitness, because they are showing principles quite well and they are quite universal. So let's start with maybe a fitness related example. When usually in a discussion like this, or in a topic like this, the best example, like the basic example, is like you're fat, you are not in shape, and you want to get in shape, and the end of the story is when you are in shape, and that's a great ending, but it's not an ending. It's just a part of the story, and the story goes further and further. Very often in romantic comedy kind of movies, they end up together and this is the end of the movie. But I'm more curious about what happens 2 years later, when they live together and they start arguing, how they resolve conflicts, This is what is interesting for me. And the same applies here to fitness. And my personal experience here is that, I found myself in a situation quite a few times already, after, of course, struggling with eating, diet, habits, lifting weights and so on. Is like, I can't do this. And I was forcing myself to do certain things. And then I was disappointed with myself. And for the last, 6 or 7 years, there's a lot of peace. I feel like, the practice of acceptance is on a really good level. And like I said before, my motivation is to share it. But this is a kind of advanced basics, because, I want to talk about the situation wherein I am in a good shape. I am actually, even though I am very hard on myself, I am actually satisfied with my body. I am satisfied with my performance. I am satisfied with my body aesthetics or whatever, or like with my strength. And it is good. And I am actually also satisfied with my eating habits. I feel almost proud of myself. I don't like pride. That's why I don't say I'm proud of myself, but I'm kind of proud of myself that, I have organized my environment, my habit. And I feel sometimes it's such a fucking masterpiece that I went against all the talk, all the principles that I heard and I questioned, and I went against the general advice, which didn't work for me basically, and I have come up with my own answers, and they are very customized, but they work for me, and I'm in that situation. And what happens then, because it's quite interesting, is that I'm in a good shape. I'm eating is quite easy for me to stick to my diet goals. And so my motivation to have this hunger for progress is almost unattainable. Like, I go to gym and I'm like, I understand my values, and I don't have motivation to grind. I don't have motivation to to keep progressing, I don't even aspire to be a professional bodybuilder or professional weightlifter, or like, be stronger, or like have, 5 kilos more in squats or in bench press, that's not the case. That's not me right now, right here, And so, what to do? And, I have cravings for, okay, so I'll just, take it easy and relax, But I know basically, based on my realization, I know where it leads, And so I have taken away from me this opportunity to escape my reality and feel almost like a victim again, And so I had struggled with that a little bit, but then I realized, that's exactly the same. I have to take responsibility of my situation, and my circumstances have changed drastically, I am no longer motivated to improve my body, but I am motivated not to have a massive regress of my strength, of my performance, of my body aesthetics. And, basically there is maybe more room to relax a little bit, but it's actually much more difficult for me personally, because I was always determined to, be very efficient and do like 120%. And now when I have to go for like 80, 70, 60% in the gym and in the diet, and stick to my diet and stick to my gym routine, it's like there's no fun in it. Basically, there's no fun in it. When I had fun, it was related to escape reality, that I'm doing something forbidden, that was fun. And then when I was going to full aesthetic vibes, like minimalist, like, no, I don't do this, I don't do that, and so on. And that was fun as well, that I'm like going against everything and so on. There was a war I felt inside of me. And right now the war is like gone. It's not there anymore, There's a peace of mind, great, but where is my war? Where is my pleasure from fighting, from the battle, me against the world, It's like, no, it's gone. And accepting it's much harder than it was to accept my obstacles in the past. But that is actually what is happening. And so basically the circumstances change, the numbers in that game change, I don't want to focus on like 100 or 120%. I want to focus on 60%. But 60% is not 0% or not 20%, So it's the art of calibrating where my values lie, where my goals are, and basically adjusting myself to these realizations, And that's still about responsibility over victimhood, because I could easily go back to that narrative that, well, there's nothing for me to do. I'm not fat. I am not, I'm not a professional. So there is no point to do anything, But that is basically not true. There is a point to go to the gym and lift light weights. And that's what I do, And very often I still have this memory in my brain, in my body, that when there is time to go to the gym, then it's some sort of memory that, oh, there will be a big struggle, and there is some fear of me, like, I don't want to go there. And then I realize, oh, but that's quite actually easy workout I am about to perform, so that's no problem, And it's a different kind of game for me these days, and I hope I will come back in the future to maybe more fun workouts in that context, But for now, I am treating my workouts as brushing my teeth. It's not fun. It's like, and maybe performing some other activities that are just not fun, but it's better if I do them, because I want to avoid consequences of, having stinky teeth or whatever, like, I'm sure it's not healthy. And I want to avoid the consequences. And same, I want to avoid the consequence of being unhealthy and fat. It's basically hygiene, you know. But yeah, so just example about the fitness. But I wanted to also touch the relationship example, which is also quite subtle as well. Because if it's like a regular conflict and somebody attacks you and you have to set your boundaries and so on, that's basic. That's I'm still I'm sure that it's still a challenge that has to be addressed seriously if you want to live a good life. But for me, that's quite easy, actually. You know, like with the gym, like I mentioned. But I want to touch on a subject or like an example. When, let's say, for example, you ask a girl out on a date, and it doesn't actually matter. That's another realization, that the principles stay the same. It doesn't matter if it's a first date with the girl you just met, or it's a date with your wife after 20 years of marriage, or something in between. It doesn't matter really, because the principles and the basics stay the same. Everything stays the same, really. We are just somewhere, like the scale is the same, but where we are on the scale is basically constantly changing, and we never know really what would satisfy us. Same as in the gym. Going 100% is not right for me, but going 60% is right for me. But I never know if it's like 60% that I want to go to, or like 20% or 50 and 80% and so on. So the example I want to touch is, you go on a date, and let's say you have come up with some idea that you want to, entertain your girl, and you want to take her to a restaurant, and after a restaurant you go to somewhere else. It doesn't matter, or like, let's say restaurant and then some dessert place or whatever else, and you had this in mind, and you're obviously, expectations are inevitable. So you have expectation how the date will go, and let's say during the restaurant or something else, and the girl, like, she's grateful for the time you had together, and she's grateful for that. But let's say she says something like, "Oh, could we do something else?" For example, could we do something else? Like, could we go to some other place which you don't like it that much, and you wanted to take her to this dessert place because you expect that she will be happy because of that, and then she kind of destroyed your plan, not out of ill will or, like, was nothing toxic about it. There was nothing, maybe this wasn't the best behavior, but the plan was changed, and what is happening right now? Like, everybody is different, so I'm kind of sharing my experience, my individual perspective on that. That very often, or at least it's a possibility that you will feel unappreciated, that she didn't let you like make the plan. She was trying to take over initiative, and and basically what would make it easier, paradoxically, was if she was actually rude during that communication, like, "Oh, I don't want to be here, I want to go somewhere else." Then it's quite easy for you to take responsibility, set the boundary, and and say, "Oh, no, thank you. Nice meeting you. Bye-bye." Yeah, after 20 years of marriage or whatever. But the thing is, it's like, it's more subtle. So I could understand that a man in that situation could feel confused a little bit, and there is some paralysis that could take place. That, "Oh, I wanted to take you here and there, and now you're destroying this plan." And very often that paralysis can lead to frustration. And the problem with that is that it's very difficult to communicate because what is your problem? We are having a good time, and I just wanted to suggest something else. I wanted to show my initiative and so on. And yeah, but I was planning to do something else and so on. And now the problem is that it's not hard enough to address it seriously and communicate easily. But even in these subtle situations, which are, currently my let's say space, my room for improvement, is that even in these subtle situations, basically, is the room for realizing that it's still about choosing responsibility over victimhood. Because, like I said, that if I continue living, I want to accept every consequence that can happen, including me taking a girl out on a date and her performing any behavior, basically. And so I want to be more and more ready for anything. And so that's the problem with this situation, because sometimes, depending on the context, depending on the communication, I think the right action is to say, oh, sure, thank you for offering that we will do your idea, for example. And sometimes, based on the context, based on the communication, you could say, well, I was actually thinking we could go to another place afterwards. And, there is never a absolute correct answer, It's always a speculation, and taking responsibility over that randomness, of that unpredictability, is where the choosing responsibility over victimhood lies, And yeah, I didn't manage to keep it short, but I wanted to maybe point at more subtle examples which are still the same, that are always about choosing responsibility over victimhood. And I could create many, many, many other examples, and the more detailed the description is, the better, the more clarity we get in understanding what is the right behavior, basically. And once we practice that, the faster it gets to come up with the answer that is close to my values, and then the easier it gets to take responsibility. Oh, this is the right answer, and I want to go in that direction. Yeah. So thank you very much for listening. If there is anybody who listened up to this point, I appreciate it. I would be very grateful if you wrote a comment saying you've managed to stay here till the end. But even if not, I'm still glad I took responsibility and continued despite of certain self-doubt that was present on my mind while trying to perform this quasi-public speaking video. So yeah, thank you for now, and all the best to you. Have a nice day.